Stories that we tell ourselves. We all love stories as human beings. And some of the stories that we tell ourselves makes us really happy. It gives us that feeling of empowerment. It gives us that feeling of that I am confident. And sometimes it's the stories that we tell ourselves are the ones that we continue to beat ourselves up. We think we are not worthy, and we let that narrative play in our head over and over and over again. But what's more important starting today is for you to be able to decide what is the story that you want to tell yourself, because we all tell ourselves stories so that we could live. Hey, good evening, everyone. This is Melvin from the Melvin Live Show, and today I just want to talk to you about something that is a little bit dark. So, if you're not in the mood for that, you could really just um, turn off and go and join me once again at another time, right? And so today, the topic that I want to talk to you about, it's about the stories that we tell ourselves. So what happened was that I was on LinkedIn this morning, and I was going through some of the posts that my connections were putting out. And what I typically do is I will take about 20 to 25 minutes, and I'll go through at least 10 of these connections, and I'll engage with that post. And in that process itself, I would also want to see who are also engaging with their posts. And so that gives me an opportunity to expand my network and to get to know more people on LinkedIn. So today I had the opportunity to come across this gentleman from Germany, and he left this quote on one of my connections posts. Says that we tell ourselves the stories in order to live, and I reflected on that quote itself, and I believe that it's something that is very true, or at least that is something that is aligned to my mental model. You see, as I alluded to the narrative right at the top during the introduction of this video itself, the whole idea behind that narrative is as follows. We all have this story playing in our head, and sometimes those stories are positive, but sometimes those stories are negative. And so the ones that are positive, of course, they are great. They are the ones that we tell ourselves that, yes, this is something that we could do. This is something that we are able to achieve. And so we are always, confident. We have the ideals and we see all possibilities to be able to achieve our goals itself. And quite frankly, I would say that some of us are like that some of the time, but none of us are like that all the time. Because as human beings, inevitably, we will go through ups and downs. And later on, I will also share with you a psychologist report about what makes a person more resilient. Now, then, of course, there are some of us who are exceptionally harsh on ourselves. Like, for example, when I was younger, I was exceptionally hard on myself. And the reason why I was exceptionally hard on myself was that I've always felt that I was never good enough. I was never good enough because, when I was growing up, I would always get compared with other kids, and that hurt me, and that caused me to always feel that in some ways I am inferior. And so I always had a feeling that, I'm not good enough. I am not deserving of these outcomes itself. Now, it wasn't until that I started to really go deep into understanding the psychology and also becoming aware of the chattel in my head. It was only then that I came to realize that actually these are just conversation in my head. This is just a story that I tell myself. And the irony of things is that sometimes when you tell yourself such stories, stories that are disempowering, sometimes those stories at the subconscious level, it's meant to protect you. So to give you an example, let's say, I talked about I've always had that feeling that I'm not good enough. And the reason why I have that story in my head, other than the fact that, it was something that kind of carried with me as I was growing up, but it's also had that thing in my head because, and a subconscious level, because I also had the struggle of wanting to not face rejection. I'm afraid of rejection. I'm afraid of failure, like many of us are. And so, in that process itself, I would tell myself that I'm not good enough. And that, on the one hand, satisfy that narrative in my head that, yes, you are not good enough, so don't even try. And on the other hand, it also constrain me or pull me back because it started telling me things like, let's not go there because you are not good enough. And if you try to go there, you are going to be, experiencing a failure. And who wants to experience a failure, right? And so it resulted in me not wanting to take that step forward. And and therein lies a huge conflict because on the one hand, I am I am wanting to achieve a particular goal. But on the other hand, I'm also pulled back by this. And so what is the way that we could, you know, rearrange or reinvent a story to tell ourselves so that we are able to empower ourselves, we are able to equip ourselves with the confidence and the ability to do what we want to do. And so here is where I want to segue and kind of share with you this psychology study. So there was a study that was done with children that came from three types of family. The first type of family was a family that was always on an upward progress. In other words, everyone is doing well, and everyone that come after that it's doing even better, and so on and so forth. Right? And you probably know that there are some people who are like that. I mean, they just have a charmed life, or at least from an outside point of view. So that's one category of families. The second category of families are the ones that are always on the downward slide. So they are all, they are going from one bad decision to another, and their life just spirals downwards. And we also know that there are people who are like that, right? Of course, in the long run, you see that downward spiral. Of course, in between, they may have ups and downs. And then they study the third family, types of family. And the third types of family are the ones that has got its upswing and has got its downswing as well. And during the upswing, the family is talking about what is it that they have done in order to get them there. And when the family is on the downswing, the family is coming together and say that, well, this is where we're at. How do we get out of this? And so you probably would have guessed by now which the kids that come from which family. The first type always on the upward, the second type always on the downward, the third type that has got its ups and downs. And when they have their ups and downs, it's how they perceive it, is what story they tell themselves as well as their children. Obviously, it's the third category of families whereby you build more resilient individuals. And the reason it's simple. In life, it is inevitable that we will go through ups and downs. There will be days, I can tell you, like in my journey of building this 1 person, 1 million all digital business, some days I'm so excited, I'm so positive about things. And some days it's just, I want to give up. And the difference between me and people who never succeeded, it's basically this: they stop. So until you quit, you are never a failure, right? Until you quit, you are never a failure. So unless you quit, then you are a failure. But if you don't quit, if you keep on pushing, if you keep on trying, you keep on looking for a way out, you will achieve your goal. And so the third type of family are the ones that develop or nurture the resilient individuals. And the reason is being so that, some days you have up, some days you have down. Sometimes you are in, you know, in the bloom of things, and you're just harvesting whatever you have. And sometimes you are just going through a cold season in your life. And that's what life is about. That said, how you perceive that situation is going to determine what inflection point you're going to go next. So, the thing that I want to share with you here today in terms of the steps that you can do, it's number one, it's ask yourself, what are the stories that you have been telling yourself? What are the stories that you have been telling yourself? Now, if you're not sure about the stories that you're telling yourself, the ones where whenever you want to do something, your mind would always go, yeah, but that, 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 right? So, yeah, but you have done this before and it didn't work. Yeah, but you have signed up for this and it didn't work. Yeah, but you have did this. Yeah, but you have didn't that, done that, and on and on and on and on. So, when you are in that situation, that is where the stories come out. And it is important, especially for those of us with kids, it is important not just to identify what is the story that we tell ourselves, but it's also crucial that we tell our children the stories that will keep them at a level that they are able to build that resilience, not to create a false environment for them, not to do it in such a way that it it kind of gives them uh, that fake sense of reality. But what you want to do is you want to be able to truly give them stories that empower them, that help them lead a better life and help them achieve the type of goals that you want to help them achieve. All right. So, with that, I'm going to leave you here because I want to ask you, I want to leave you with this question itself. And the question is, what is the story that you've been telling yourself? What is that narrative that's going on in your head? Is it a positive one or is it a not so positive one? And if it's a positive one, how can you expand that into the different areas of your life? And if it's not a positive one, then how can you change the story and to prove to yourself that the story that you're telling yourself, it is not true? Because I know deep inside that I am, it, yes, I am imperfect, but not good enough is definitely not something that I would say of myself. Because as God's child, as a child of God, I believe that I'm created in God likeness. With God likeness, there is always something in each and every one of us that we can do that is in alignment with God's character and God's value. And that it's what's going to help us succeed. Because anything that is according to His will be done. And so, my friends, with that, I'm going to leave you with that thought. What is the story that you've been telling yourself? And if you like this video, give me a thumbs up. If you're watching this on Facebook, make sure you like the video. If you want to watch more of this and you want to be alerted every time I go live, which is about 9:30 p.m., then make sure you subscribe and follow me on Facebook, because then you will be notified whenever I am on air. And so, with that, I thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you guys on the next one. Tell yourself a better story, all right? Bye bye.